for the book Ruthless, and that was written by Carolyn Lee Adams, and she's here with us today, and she's going to be discussing how she came up with her story ideas and then getting published. So give a big hand to Carolyn.
So hey, how are you guys doing today? Good. Free pizza? I didn't know there was going to be free pizza here. I thought, no, I wouldn't have had Mexican. It's very exciting. So guys, thanks for coming out. I really appreciate you being here. And like she said, I just tell a little bit of, kind of about my story. I was in Charleston for 6 weeks last winter. I rented a house. I kind of just decided to create a little writing retreat for myself, and I went out to Charleston, and it was really cool. I got a lot of writing done, and when I first arrived, I went to a fudge shop. And you guys, I'm sure, clap if you've been to Charleston. You guys know. And right down on right by the slave market, there's the fudge shops and all those kind of t-shirts and such. Yeah, and there's the one where they make the fudge. And it's a really fun place to go. If you've never been, you should totally go. So I was there, and I was buying this fudge, and I was in sweatpants and a t-shirt, and looking like a bum, as I frequently do. So I'm buying this fudge, and the gal starts asking me all these questions, like, do you live here? I'm like, no, I'm in a house. And she's like, well, what are you doing? I'm like, I'm working on, a new book, and she's like, well, how do you make a living? I'm like, I'm a novelist, and da-da-da-da. So she stops, and she stares at me, and she goes, how'd you get the privilege to do that? And I was like, holy cats, that is a heck of a question. But it really stuck with me because she's not wrong. I live a really privileged life. I get up in the morning and I get to do the thing that I love to do most, which is write for a living. And so I am really, really, really fortunate. And I don't know about y'all, but when I was in college, when I would come to talks like this, I would have two main motivations. One, free pizza was way high on the list of why I would attend. And then number two, I would be kind of curious to try to figure out why this person had the privilege to do that. Does that make sense? Okay, so you're doing this. How would you figure that out? How'd you get that gig? Because I want it myself. And that was my motivation. So I kind of want to share with you how I got this gig. And I will tell you that I got it the hard way because I graduated college in 1999. I worked on becoming a professional writer for well over a decade before I actually got it done. So I definitely took the long and winding path, but I do feel like I kind of learned some things en route. And I'll tell you, one thing that I was very fortunate to have right from the get-go were parents who encouraged me to, quote, follow my bliss. And I know a lot of people don't have that kind of encouragement and don't have that kind of support. A lot of people are told to go get a stable job, go get something that's reliable, and da-da-da-da. And I was really fortunate because my parents had no interest whatsoever in financial stability. They really didn't. They didn't care about it. They were like, listen, follow your bliss, and if you do that, everything's going to work out, everything's going to be okay. And so from a very young age, I was encouraged to be able to identify what it was that brought me bliss. What is it that brought me joy? And that was a huge gift from my parents. My parents really, really, really helped me. And if you haven't had that life experience of a mentor or a parent or an authority figure who has encouraged you to figure out what it is that brings you joy, you should try to find a way to do that for yourself. Because I do believe that that's true. That if you find a vocation that brings you joy and that brings you bliss, things will be okay. I mean, granted, it might take you 14 years like it did me, but it will be okay in the long run. In the long run, it'll turn out. It'll be all right. So that was the first key. So I knew that I wanted to be a professional writer, and I specifically knew that I wanted to go to film school. When I was in junior high, the movie Silence of the Lambs came out. And I went and saw it. I loved it. I saw it 3 times in the theater. And I knew what I wanted to do. I wanted to be a screenwriter. I had some feeling about I want to do film or I want to write, and Silence of the Lambs kind of brought it all together. And it spoke to me on a lot of levels, in part because I had sort of a creepy childhood in that I grew up south of Seattle in the 80s, and I grew up right at ground zero for the Green River Killer's dumping grounds. If you don't know who the Green River Killer is, he is the most prolific serial killer in American history, and he dumped his bodies less than a mile from my house. So I'm in 3rd grade, and they're, finding these people all the time. It was very disturbing. It was a really creepy way to grow up, and it definitely made a mark on me. And I knew I wanted to be creative in some way, and then Silence of the Lambs kind of showed me how I could channel that dark side I developed into something positive. And so I knew I wanted to go to film school. I really, really wanted to go to USC Film School in particular, because it was like the best in the country. And I was like, man, that's where I want to go. I want to major in screenwriting. But I had a problem, and that problem was I did not know how to do math. Like, didn't know it, did not know. I'll never forget like taking the SAT, and you know how like each page gets harder and stuff? So like I got to page 2, and I was like, I don't know how to do these problems. This is not good. And it wasn't. I had a really low SAT. Like, it was super bad, you guys. And I also didn't have the world's greatest GPA. I had a 3.3, which was, it's not terrible, but it's not great either. But I was very fortunate because the application to USC was about 50 pages long. It was a lot of just writing stories, submit the stories you've written. And if it hadn't been for that model, I would have never gotten in. So I was very fortunate. And I think that I personally believe that Providence takes us to places that we need to go. That's just my own personal belief. But so I was able to, so I guess kind of the point of mentioning that is I really wasn't the world's greatest student, I really wasn't. I quite literally slept through language arts. I mean, I can't even tell you how literal, I slept. I would fall asleep like that. And so when I became a writer, I struggled because I didn't know grammar. I mean, like I didn't know how, I had a big vocabulary because I read a lot, but I didn't know how to put sentences together, and I wanted to be a writer. And that's asinine, guys. And I wouldn't advise it. Like, if you want to be a writer, I would recommend learning grammar. And I really would. It's a strong recommendation. I wound up really figuring out how sentences work in my 30s. I'm 38 right now. By the way, part of the reason why I was able to escape through that is because as a screenwriter, it doesn't matter as much. You're writing lots of times incomplete sentences. Screenwriting is a very different art than writing a novel. So I was good at writing dialogue. I was good at kind of mimicking human speak, blah, blah, blah. But I didn't know grammar. So when I switched to novels, I had an uphill battle to climb, and it was tough. It was tough figuring out how to write in that way. But I kept doing it, and Ruthless wound up being the 3rd novel that I wrote. And I actually wrote Ruthless during, just to take a trip to the back, clap if you've read this book. Bless your heart, Katie. Bless her. Katie's like, I totally read it. That's awesome. Thank you for reading it. And if you haven't, I would be, it would mean a lot to me if you did read the book, but meh. Don't worry about it. For the purposes here, the point of the book, if you're not familiar, if you haven't read the little blurb, it's about a girl who gets abducted. And abducted by a serial killer. She escapes out of that situation into a wilderness setting. So it's sort of a dual-purpose survival novel. It's a thriller, and whether you like it or not, I think that the one thing pretty much everybody agrees on is that the book moves. It's a page turner. It's a page turner. It's a thriller. And it's a very kind of visceral read. It's very visceral. And those are the things that, I think its greatest strengths. And I think the reason why the book is so visceral is because I wrote it during a time of pretty intense crisis. My marriage was falling apart. And writing this book was cathartic. At the time that I wrote it, I really didn't think that anyone would ever read it. I thought it was too simple of a story to ever be published. I thought it was too simple of a story to ever even get an agent. It's a very kind of, the storyline is just what I told you. Girl gets abducted, girl escapes into the woods, that's the plot. You know what I mean? It is a very simple plot. That's what it is, you guys. And so when I was writing it, the only reason why I was writing this book is because I love to write. And that takes you back to the thing I was saying about following your bliss. You know, if what you're doing for a living is something that you would do anyway, even if no one was paying you, then you're on the right course. And again, I really never thought that anyone would ever read Ruthless. Obviously to my delight, they did. And like I said, I'd written 2 books prior. I had an agent, and went out with the first novel. That novel didn't sell. I wrote a second novel, and she didn't like the second novel, my agent at the time. And so she broke up with me. And she did. She broke up with me, and this isn't like a play for pity. I think it's more just sort of an astounding, little bit of a trivia bit. But there was this really amazing 2-week period in my life where my agent broke up with me, my ex-husband loved me and left me, not loved me, the opposite of that. That was a weird Freudian slip. So my ex-husband left, and my dad's cancer came back, and my grandmother had pneumonia and was like in the hospital. Right, so it was an amazing 2 weeks, and I was like, well, this is the worst. You know what I mean? This is the worst. This is a real tornado of the worst all coming together. And so at that point in time, I just doubled down and started writing twice as fast and as hard on this book. The book was really the only thing I had, which was great. It gave me, I had a lot. I also was unemployed. So I had a lot of free time to work on it, and I did. And so, it was this kind of perfect storm that could have destroyed me, or you can allow bad things to motivate you. And I was fortunate enough to kind of follow that path and let it motivate me. And it came out on the other side, and wound up, in Charleston, renting a house for 6 weeks and having the fudge seller ask me why I had the privilege to do that. And I went, well, this is how I got it. So that's kind of, I'll tell you too, you guys, it really was amazing, because after I wrote Ruthless, I got a new agent, very quickly, and she called me. She said she wanted to represent the book, and she's like, I have a couple notes, and I'm anticipating just this avalanche of work. She's like, I want to change the title to Ruthless. I'm like, perfect, that sounds great. She goes, and if you could just sort of clean up the stuff on page 8, that'd be awesome. I'm like, that's going to take me 20 minutes. And so I had very little work to do, and she turned around, submitted it to publishing houses, and we had an offer on the book within a week. And it sold within 10 days, which just doesn't happen, Which is, it was pretty amazing. I've gone through a really, really, really rough period for like 2 years of really, really bad things for 2 years. And so then all of a sudden I have 2 weeks. I've sort of erased the negativity of the prior time. It was an amazing life experience. So I'm guessing that all of you out there have gone through hard times. Is that a safe bet? That's a safe bet that everyone's gone through the hard times. And the thing is that you really can't get on the other side of it. And I think that one of the things that I would recommend to anybody is just be brave. You know what I mean? And don't be afraid to name what you want. I grew up in the Seattle area, and I think one of the things that was negative about my childhood is I grew up in the 90s, very, very much Nirvana, right? And there was this slacker mentality of ambition wasn't cool. There was this kind of very apathetic energy in the environment that I grew up in and in my friend group. And I felt very, very, very uncomfortable labeling, ambition as such. I felt uncomfortable being ambitious. I felt uncomfortable wanting things. And I think it's because we are afraid to say that we could make it. If you have no success to your name whatsoever, and you're like, I think I can do this, you're proclaiming something about yourself that's not yet proven, and it's really easy for people to knock you down if you make yourself vulnerable in that way. Or at least that was my feelings. My feeling was that it was very difficult to make myself vulnerable in that way. And so I sort of hid from the things that I really wanted, and I sort of hid from my dreams because I was scared of failure. And it's a bad place to operate from. It really is a bad place to operate from. And it's just, I think it's an epidemic, you know. We all have fears, but I think that we frequently succumb to those fears, give in to them, and let them dictate our actions. And it's, you know, it's no way to live, it really isn't. And one of the great blessings in my ex-husband leaving me was that was my biggest fear. My absolute biggest fear was getting a divorce. And so then once I was on the other side of that and I realized I was still alive and everything, I'm like, holy cow, I made it, you know, I'm still alive. It really set me free to do whatever I wanted to do. And so the first thing I started doing, in addition to, I've been writing for, you know, my whole life, so that wasn't a new deal. But the next thing I started doing stand-up comedy. And I love doing stand-up. I've been doing stand-up for 2.5 years now, and it's something I've always wanted to do, but I was afraid. I was afraid of getting on stage and failing. And it's been wonderful. It's been super duper duper fun. I love doing stand-up. It's been great. I found my people. You know, for 36 years, I never felt like I found my people, you know? I always felt very much like a loner. And then I found all these freaks and geeks who do stand-up, and I was like, there they are! I found my people! This is so exciting! It's all the weirdos! I found all the weirdos in one setting. It's awesome. And I love those guys. And I travel all over the country doing stand-up, and no matter what city I go to, I find the exact same brand of weirdos. And it's an instant home. No matter where I go, I always have a home, and it's in whatever the stand-up comedy club is. That's where I belong. And it's been a wonderful adventure doing that. I actually produce a show at Anderson called Movie Tuesday at the Mellow Mushroom. And that's just like it's a weekly open mic and book showcase. And little open mics are really important for comics to be able to hone their skills. And it's a wonderful place for me to have great comics come in, and I get to host a show and create a fun home for all the people that want to come and learn how to do stand-up. And then I travel around and do book shows, and I get paid very, very, very poorly for it. That's the other. Usually it's not even enough to cover gas, you guys. That's what I'm doing it for. Here's $20. Thank you. You know, but it's a wonderful experience. It's tons of fun, and then once in a while I get as much as $100. What? It's very exciting. Like big dollars. I'm trying to think. I think $100 is the most I've ever been paid to do comedy. I'm not that good yet, is the point. It takes a while to get really good at comedy. I've only been doing it for 2.5 years. So, and it's just like with writing. It took me a long time to get good at that. It takes a lot of practice, a lot of hard work, a lot of dedication. But if you're doing something that you love the process of it, even though you're not at the top of your game yet, the experience of doing it is motivation enough to keep doing it. And that is the trick. If you can find that thing in your life, that is the trick, I'll tell you what. So yeah, so that's kind of like, that's my story. That's how I came to write this book. That's how I came to be a stand-up comic who isn't that good yet. But I do produce a heck of a show. I will say that. I'm very proud of the shows I produce. That is my strong suit. I love producing shows. And, you know, it's been a wonderful journey. And I wouldn't change anything about it for anything, including all of the rough and tough stuff. Because it's through adversity that we're shaped and we're honed into who and what we're really supposed to be. And it sounds kind of weird, but I actually kind of have compassion and sadness a little bit for people who've had a really easy life, you know, because it's if you're just going to skate by and you don't bump up against all the hard stuff, it doesn't shape you as much. And so I don't know. I think that we have this tendency to look at bad things as exactly that, and they are. But in every bad thing we go through, there's an opportunity to become stronger and better. And, you know, that is echoed in the book itself. Katie knows that. She's read it. And if you read it, you'll find that too. My dedication in the front of the book is to survivors. And my hope that all survivors keep on fighting until they're thriving. Because, you know, like a lot of people, I went through some tough things in my childhood. And I think that for a long time I self-identified as a victim. you know, and when you've gone through very difficult experiences, it's easy to do that. It's easy to self-identify as a victim and to see yourself as the underdog all the time. And I'll tell you, one of the things that helped cure me of that mentality is UFC. Does anybody else like UFC? Yeah, UFC you do? That's Ultimate Fighting Championship for anybody who doesn't know, like, cage fighting is what I'm referring to right now, mixed martial arts. I always loved fighting, I always loved boxing, and then I found UFC, and I particularly found Conor McGregor, if you want to know Conor. Conor is a fighter who's very Muhammad Ali-esque, and he has a great gift of gab. And he has this quote, I want to share it with you guys, and this is really what it's all about for me, and why I love Conor and UFC in particular. I'm just going to find it real quick. At the end of the day, you got to feel some way. So why not feel unbeatable? Why not feel untouchable? Why not feel like the best to ever do it? And when I first came across that quote, it was like a lightning bolt for me, because I was like, he's right. At the end of the day, you do have to feel some way, and you actually have probably more control than you may realize over how you feel, and definitely over what you think. So why not feel, unbeatable? Why not feel like the best to ever do it? Why not choose to feel that way? Why not choose to feel like a winner? And I was like, I think that would be pretty amazing. I would like to feel that way. And then I just got into the habit of choosing to feel that way, and of choosing to feel not like a victim, but as someone who can overcome, as someone who is capable of conquering over adversity. And it's made all the difference. Choosing to think in that way has made all the difference in my life. And again, it's a choice you can actually make. It's kind of crazy, I would highly, highly recommend it. And so, Conor McGregor is an inspiration of mine because of the way that he thinks. And another inspiration of mine is Russell Wilson, the quarterback for the Seattle Seahawks. I like sports. I don't know if you got that yet. I like sports a lot. One of the great things about Russell that I think everybody, this is just a wonderful way to think about troubles in your own life, is he always talks about the reset button. The Seahawks had to secure this incredible come-from-behind victory, and it was inconceivable, but they secured this victory, and they had been down, I don't even know, it was 36 points, something crazy. And they asked Russell, and he was like, after every single play, I hit the reset button. So it doesn't matter if something really terrible has just happened, like if I've just fumbled the ball or I've thrown an interception, I hit reset, and I literally think to myself, reset, and then go to neutral. Reset, go to neutral. So instead of letting negative things accumulate and weigh you down, to cultivate the ability to hit reset and find a new way forward, to go back to neutral ground, I found that to be incredibly useful, like that mentality. And when rough things happen, I hit the reset button. And then Russell said something that I found pretty profound. He said, what's even more difficult is to hit the reset button after positive things have happened. Because when we've had a big victory, it's easy to sort of rest on our laurels. And it's important to stay humble. And that reset button after positive things is a practice of humility. It's like, just because I sold this book it really doesn't mean anything about my future. It doesn't. You have to hit reset and write another book. This doesn't, it only lasts for so long. Everything only lasts for so long. And you can't become complacent. Just because something good has happened doesn't mean that you can't, you get the privilege of just stopping fighting. You have to keep working and keep fighting. So that whole mentality of choosing to be positive, choosing to hit the reset button, and basically choosing success. You can choose success. I mean, if you know what brings you happiness and joy, there's nothing that can stop you. It's really true. I mean, I'm a girl with a really terrible SAT, who wasn't a very good student, and learned really how to write in my 30s. And I'm a college novelist. That's crazy. It's crazy. And I'll tell you, the third ingredient to me of being successful is gratitude. I am so grateful for all the good things that have come into my life. And I believe that that spirit of gratitude keeps good things flowing into my life. You know, there's I've never read the book, so I should probably not talk about it, but I'm going to do it anyway. There's a book called The Law of Attraction, you know, and my understanding of the principle is that if you think about positive things will happen to you. I'm guessing. I think that's what it is. I don't know. But I was sort of like, I feel like I kind of read the blurb and I was like, yeah, I think I got it. I don't feel like I need to read this book. I feel like I got it. You're like, maybe y'all go, yeah, okay, this girl gets abducted. I don't need to read, I get it, you know? It's good enough. I got that idea. I got the cliff notes. So this concept of the law of attraction, whatever the book might say, I know for me in my own life that I feel like gratitude and being thankful for all the wonderful things that have happened keep wonderful things happening. Like focusing on the positive keeps positive things happening. And I've just been super duper lucky. Actually, real quick, does anybody have any questions about anything? Anybody want? Yes?
How did you get the idea for
Ruthless was prompted by a dream. A lot of the things I write are prompted by dreams. I dreamt the first 3 chapters, and I woke up and I was like, I need to write this book. Again, obviously my own personal experiences with the Green River Killer, not that, we hung out or anything, but, just like growing up, personal experience might be too far, but my childhood certainly predisposed me. I was also born on Halloween, and I've always had sort of a arguably unfortunate interest in dark, creepy things. It's just sort of my nature. So, having had this nature and been having it cultivated by exterior circumstances, Ruthless was certainly something that was close to my heart just from the get-go. I'd also been watching a lot of the Bio Channel show, I Survived. Did anybody see that? It is the best show. It's not on TV anymore, it's really sad. It was an awesome storytelling show. It was reality, but it wasn't cheesy. There was no dumb reenactments. There was no annoying music. It was just like a person talking to the camera about surviving horrific things. And there was always 3 stories told each episode. And invariably, one of the stories would be about a woman who'd been abducted. And I was so flabbergasted by the tenacity of these women to overcome things that seemed absolutely unsurvivable. And I had been raised to believe that if somebody abducts you, you have to fight, scream, kick, because if you go to a second location, you will die. This was taught to me. You will die. There's no, you're dead. You're going to die. So I had this belief, and watching I Survived, I realized that these women survived through all variety of tactics, through being passive, through being agreeable, through fighting, through manipulation, through all these different ways. And it really opened my mind up to the fact that in order for a victim to become the success, to not be a victim, there's just any number of avenues towards success. And poor Ruth kind of goes through all of them. As I was sort of captivated by this whole thing, that there's all these different ways to survive in this terrible situation. And so I kind of put my protagonist through all a number of torturous, terrible things. So, yeah.
Did you do any other research other than watching I Survived or your personal experience?
I didn't. I sure didn't, and maybe I should, but I didn't. But having grown up, having read arguably way too much about serial killers, I had spent basically an entire lifetime researching for it, if you know what I'm saying, because this has just always been an interest of mine. And I wrote Ruthless really quickly. I wrote Ruthless in about 4 months. So I just, again, it was very visceral. It was this very kind of cathartic experience, and I just churned it out. Yeah.
Who classified it YA, or I've seen that?
It was a group project. When I queried for agents, the way that you get the most classic way of getting a literary agent is to send them a short email, just pitching the book, describing who you are, and including about 10 pages of the novel, and the first 10 pages. And that's how I got my agent. And so I looked for a YA agent, and I pitched it as a YA novel, young adult, because the protagonist is 17. That said, Ruthless is not a typical YA novel by any means. It's frequently described as crossover, meaning that it's applicable for adults as well. And it really is, it is definitely an older YA. And it is a little awkward when people are like, I bought this for my 12-year-old. I'm like, well, don't let her read it. Like, really, don't. You read it first, especially the first 3 chapters, so some stuff happens.
So there's not like a rating system, it's you pitch,
Yes,
and that's where.
yes, and then Simon & Schuster went with it. And actually, speaking of adversity, like, so the way that publishing works, the editor buys it, and then the editor shepherds that project all the way through into marketing and all that kind of jazz. So my editor bought Ruthless. Yeah, very exciting. And I was extremely fortunate to get a pretty generous advance, which is unusual for debut authors. Just so you know kind of how the business of publishing works, novels can be purchased for, sometimes you don't get any advance at all, but usually there's some level of advance, and it goes all the way up. And there's a wide range of advances that can be doled out. And I was fortunate to receive a very generous advance. The bad side of the generous advance is I don't get paid again until I earn out my advance. So whenever anybody buys a copy of Ruthless, I don't get any royalties from that. It goes to Simon & Schuster. So I have to earn out my advance before I receive any royalties. And I feel like I'm going to be doing that maybe forever. I quite literally may never get another dime for this book. And that's just life. It'll be fine. So yeah, so Simon & Schuster, my editor bought it, and then she immediately left Simon & Schuster and went to a different publishing company. So Ruthless was shuffled to a different editor who hated his job, and so he didn't do anything on it. And then he got fired, and then I got a third editor. It was pretty great. And every single time whenever any of these things happened, my agent would text, like, email me, she's like, don't freak out. Like, that was always the first sentence, don't freak out. And I never did. I was like, it'll be fine. And she got used to me being really, really chill with the whole process, and nothing would ruffle my feathers. And then they sent me the book cover, and I hated it, and I freaked out. Like, I completely freaked out. I was like, no, that looks so stupid. Like, it was just the worst. To be honest with you, I don't 100% love the one it has right now. But, it's much better than it was. So yeah, I did freak out about the cover. But yeah, so that's how it became YA. It was sold to Simon & Schuster, and they agreed and signed off on it, and that's the way that it was marketed and sold. Somebody wanted that? There's one in the front. Yes?
So how did you go from like dark and creepy to stand-up comedy?
Well, it's a good question. So, as my friend was saying right there, I'm really a storyteller. That's what I love to do. I love to tell stories on page or on stage. When I do comedy, I do narrative comedy. I tell stories. I do some jokes, but I primarily am just telling narratives no matter what. And I think that here's the thing: there's a super high suicide rate amongst comics. Comedians are dark people. I mean, they're really dark. They're darker than horror writers by a lot. I'm actually like the cheeriest one, for sure. And comedy is a response mechanism to stress. It's a coping skill. Comedy is a coping skill. So when I was a kid and I was being bullied really, really severely, and I was going through the crap I was going through, my method of coping with it was to try to be funny. And that became my coping mechanism, and that was my refuge. And it was a mixed bag, because I feel like I learned how to be funny, but I didn't know how to turn it off, So I would just be the class clown, and then I'd get beat up again, I guess. Because people would be like, it's time for you to shut up. And so it took me a while, I think, to try to find a balance in my personality, and I'm still in that process. I think I'm really till I die. That'd be my guess on that. Yeah?
When did you get like your advance or get like
The money?
the money?
Wonder what did the money?
Yeah.
I had the same question. And, it was funny because along with everything else with Simon & Schuster, I got it 2 months late. So you're supposed to get your first third of the advance upon signing the contract. But for reasons that were never fully explained to me, I got it 2 months later. But luckily, I was, living off my ex-husband, and I I was, you guys, that's what I was doing. Because I was like, well, you know, so you leave me for a teenager. You're going to be paying my bills for a little bit, so that's how that works out. So yeah, I wasn't too stressed about getting that money because I was, like, it's not like I was living like large by any means. I had a tiny, tiny, tiny little house in Middleton, and I had very low cost of living, and I was just sort of trucking along like that. So I got the first third, and then you get the second third upon completion of the manuscript when everybody's like, okay, these revisions have been done, and we're happy with it. And then you get your final third upon publication. Although in true Simon Schuster form, I got it a month and a half after it was actually published. So, you know, they send me the checks whenever they want. And so now I don't get any more money until I earn out my advance. So it's kind of fun.
What is earn out?
So earn out my advance is, so like, let's say, well, it doesn't matter. So you get this, you know, the advance, you receive this sum of money spread over the 3 payments, right? Well, every single time a hardcover sells, 12.5% of that sell goes toward earning out my advance. 25% of a Kindle or an ebook goes towards earning out my advance. So these tiny little chunks of money go, they go back to Simon Schuster. And once all these little tiny chunks of money add up to my advance, then I start earning royalties. So quite possibly, I may never see, I might never see another dime for the book, and that's okay. It really is. But it is kind of interesting. It's sort of high stakes and sort of fun and adrenaline because I have this much money, and I just, you know what I mean? And eventually we'll get down to zero, you guys, and we'll see what happens. I have no idea. Hopefully, I will sell something else. Actually, in very exciting news for yours truly, I got this really kind of crazy phone call in the middle of August from a woman named Lauren Lloyd, and she's a producer. She's made over 60 movies, and she used to be a studio exec, and now she's an independent producer. She's made a whole bunch of movies you would have heard, like The Rock with Sean Connery, and like The Horse Whisperer, and she made the new Nina Simone biopic with Zoe Saldana. Anywho, so she's a movie producer, and she read Ruthless and loved it and wanted to option it. So she optioned Ruthless, and right now she's out there looking for money to make it into a movie. How fun and exciting is that? 2 thumbs up! And obviously, like, I would love to see it be made into a movie, particularly because I went to film school and I was a screenwriter for a few years, and the book lends itself to, you know, because I was trained in that way. It's written very much like a screenplay, just as a novel. And so it's a natural adaptation sort of thing, and I really hope that she's able to make it into a movie, because if she does, then I can get paid again. And it would be cool to go see it as a movie. So that's very exciting. I'm very excited. And she's having me write the screenplay. So that's actually what I'm writing right now. That's what I'm doing every day, is working on the screenplay for Ruthless. So hopefully, fingers crossed on that one. Yeah.
Are you anticipating more books?
Well, I am also, the other thing I should be doing, and I just not, it's been hot. Sometimes, here's something I feel like I really learned in life. You know, there's procrastination, and then there's also this other thing that happens where you're just not getting something done, and you feel bad about it, and you're beating yourself up over it, and you're like, why am I procrastinating? Why am I procrastinating? And what I feel like, I was actually reading a stupid little thing on BuzzFeed. And BuzzFeed, you know, that font of wisdom, it's like sometimes you're not procrastinating, you're just not ready to tackle whatever it is you're not doing. And I was like, holy cats, BuzzFeed, you are on the money. You are on the money. And there's a lot of truth to that. So there's this novel that I've been working on for 5 years. It's called The Book Bezra. I love it. It is my favorite thing that I've ever done. It's super ambitious. It's a very big, complicated, ambitious novel. And Simon Schuster loves the idea. They totally want to buy it. It's very exciting. And all I need to do is send it to them. That's all I need to do. I need to get it ready and send it to them. But getting it ready is difficult because sometimes I just don't know what to do with the book. And then I'll figure out what to do with the book, and I'll, do a lot of revision, and then I get stuck again. And I'm not stuck because I'm lazy, I'm stuck because I really don't know how to fix some of these story problems. And once these things resolve themselves in my mind, then I'm very productive again. But sometimes things are just a slow process. In the Book of Ezra, actually, I just clicked over to the 6-year mark, so I've been doing that for 6 years. Yeah. It better be good once it's done, you guys. It better be like an amazing book. It'll get published and you'll read it and you're like, 6 years? Huh. Doesn't seem like 6 years, seems like about 6 months, but sure. No, I think it's a cool book. It's set in an 1890s New York poorhouse and insane asylum. It's a very true, like classic Gothic horror, and I love that genre. And I actually did do a ton of research for that book, or I have been doing a ton of research to learn a lot about how poorhouses really were run. Yeah.
Who are your favorite authors?
My favorite author is Edgar Allan Poe, Stephen King, Shakespeare, which I know makes me kind of sound like a nerd, but I like reading Macbeth once every 6 months easily, maybe more than that. I love Macbeth. Oscar Wilde, I read a lot. I have the complete works of Oscar Wilde. I read it cover to cover, kind of a lot, like considering what it is. And it's a thick book, but I just love Oscar, and he makes me happy. And then C.S. Lewis. I love C.S. Lewis. I tend to read a lot of dead authors. I don't read a lot of modern stuff. I do read some modern stuff, but not a lot. I like things written in the 19th century for some reason. That's sort of my speed. So, yeah.
Talk a little bit about your process.
Yeah. So every writer has a process, and a lot of your most successful authors have a really strong, strict regimen. You know, they have like, I get up in the morning at 7 and I write from 8 to 12, whatever. I have no such process at all. I write, sometimes I write at night, sometimes I write in the morning, sometimes whatever. It's just sort of however, whenever. Sometimes I'll go out to a coffee shop and write in public, and sometimes I write at home. So I am really, really scheduling adverse. But I will say that one thing that I find very necessary to my process is that I'm near a window. I need to be near, like, the idea of being like in a dark cubicle makes me go crazy. I think I would really struggle to write in that environment. I like to be near light, be able to see out a window, because when I get stuck, I want to be able to look out and just stare at something. Whether it's a city scene or whether it's trees or whatever the heck, I need to like just stare out of a window to get my brain moving in. And the other thing that has like been extraordinarily helpful in my process is I take what I call thinking showers. Like a shower is like white noise, and I take my thinking showers and my problems go away. Like my brain just starts making these amazing connections. So I'm like, oh, this is how I solve all these story problems. And when I'm like really in the thick of revision, I'll take as many as 3 thinking showers a day. Like, I really do. I'm like, I gotta get in there and do some more thinking showers. And it just sort of clicks, everything clicks when I'm in the thinking shower.
Do you ever get those waterproof notepads? You put them in the shower?
No, they have waterproof notepads for a shower? That's amazing. I totally want that. Wow, I will look into that. So I'm not the first person to take a thinking shower.
Yeah.
All right, then I'm not alone. That's awesome. Yeah.
Did you already say how you found Pendleton from Seattle, Washington?
That's a really great question. So my ex-husband is from Clemson. I followed a boy, is what that is. Never a good idea. Don't do that. Please, don't follow a boy. No, it's, I was coming from a good place, I guess. So I was in LA. My ex-husband also went to the University of Southern California. So we were both out in Los Angeles. He hated Los Angeles. He wanted to come back to Clemson. And I had spent quite a bit of time in Clemson visiting his family. And I'd actually spent my summers here working at a textile mill in Central. So, I was well familiar with the South, and I loved it here. So it wasn't like I was going to someplace I didn't like. And I also was led to believe that we would go back to LA. We never did. He was like, yeah, I need to get out of LA for a while, and we can come back, and you can keep working on your career. And I'm like, I believe you. So it makes perfect sense. We'll get out there and settle, and then we'll come back. Like, no. Nope. So we got married and bought a little house in Pendleton, and I loved Pendleton. I was there for 10 years. Semi-recently, I moved to Greenville because I was driving just about every single day to go to comedy in Greenville, and that got cold. So recently moved there, and I'm actually looking to go back to LA. So if especially if Ruthless sells as a screenplay, if I sell the film rights, I'll move back to LA, which I'll be sad in this place. Yeah.
Do you watch a lot of like crime shows and learn a bit about the mountain area here for like ideas?
Yeah, I like to watch. I don't watch a lot of TV, honestly. I used to watch a ton of nonfiction television, like Cold Case Files and stuff like that. I loved Cold Case Files. That was the best. Anything narrated by Bill Curtis, American Justice. I love those shows a lot. And I used to watch them. I used to spend a lot of time watching them. And then, honestly, when my marriage got real bad, I stopped watching TV and I stopped listening to music just because I was in a really bad place. And anything triggered like a lot of emotion in me. It was kind of pathetic, I'm not gonna lie. So I was just like, I couldn't handle watching or even listening to music because I would get emotional. And I was just sort of like, I had so many emotional defense mechanisms going on. And I really haven't gotten back into the habit of watching TV since that time. Except for, I did, it's over now, but I love Sons of Anarchy. Every fiber of my being, I love that show. Did anybody watch Sons? Kurt Sutter is the man. That is my dream. My dream is to meet Kurt Sutter, and we have this amazing conversation, and he's like, I think we should be friends, and I'm like, me too. And he's like, I think also you should probably come write for my TV show. I'm like, I was thinking the same thing, Kurt, and then we like laugh. I really feel like that is in my future, you guys. I really hope. Fingers crossed. We'll see. But yeah, I love Kurt Sutter, and I really love Sons of Anarchy. So, and I really love 30 Rock and Tina Fey and Parks and Rec to a slightly lesser degree. But other than that, I don't watch a lot.
Question down here in the corner.
Yes.
Just curious, you mentioned about finding a publisher agent. Is there anything else actively you must do in order to get published?
I don't think so. For me, it's one of the reasons why I was drawn to, actually, here's the thing. The reason why I switched from screenplays to novels is because I moved to the South, and I had stupidly thought, just so naive, that I could still get screenwriting jobs in the South. No, that's dumb. Like I did, for a few months, I would get a couple of rewrite jobs, and then people were like, well, she's 3,000, whatever, 2,000, I don't know. 1,000? I don't know. It's a long time. No, it's more than 1,000. Whatever. It's the whole country. And so, even though there's email and you have a network, they just forget about you, and that's life. So I was like, I have to find a way to make a living as a writer out here, and novels appealed because, especially at the time, it's kind of changed with self-publishing and Amazon. There's been a lot of game changers, but especially at that time, which was 2009. There was such a strict, rigid, and structured format to the path to success in traditional publishing is it's a road that is easily marked. You know what I mean? Like you just get on the highway and you just follow the road signs. Selling a screenplay in Hollywood is completely amorphous. There is no road. There's a million roads, and none is better than the other, and they all involve a lot of hustle and being able to sell yourself. And I found that really. I'm over it now. I don't know if you can tell, but I'm kind of over it. But at the time, I was very self-effacing, and I was scared, and I didn't know how to push myself forward, and I didn't know how to be confident about my work. And so I didn't do well out in LA because I was just too timid. You got to be confident. And so with novels, you can hide behind a query letter and just get your agent to do it, and then your agent does everything for you. It was great, yeah. So there's like agentquery.com. There's a lot of different websites that will give you just a huge database of literary agents. So you just Google literary agent database or whatever the heck, and there's a lot of different sites that'll pop up. And you look for the people who represent the genre you're writing in, and you do some research about the ones who seem to be the most successful, Publishers Marketplace. There's a lot of Publishers Marketplace, et cetera, lots of great websites out there that'll let you know what agent represents the kind of stuff you do. And then you write a query letter, and like the first paragraph pitches your book, second paragraph says a little bit about you, and then you include 10 pages, the first 10 pages of your novel, usually sometimes more, sometimes less. And you just, it's like cold calls, right? You just start sending out those emails. And I made a book trailer for my first novel, which was pretty good. And I did that to like get attention. So I was like, here's 10 pages of the novel plus a really rad book trailer that I made because I went to film school, you know. So, you know, I try to get attention that way. And that is like how I got my agent. The book trailer kind of caught their eye that I had something else to offer. But that's kind of rare, and they don't, I mean, like, and honestly, like, it's not a good reason to pick you up. It's like, who cares about the book trailer? But, you know what I mean, like, in terms of whether or not you can write a novel. But that's how I did it. So, and then, yeah, your agent does everything for you. It's great. Agents are amazing. Yeah?
How much say so do you have in like the editing process?
You have quite a bit, you know, or at least I did. I wound up having good relationships with all 3 editors that I had, and for me, I mean, like, there was one, you know, here's for all y'all who haven't read the book, Ruth spends the vast majority of the book naked. So Simon Schuster was a little concerned about that, and they were like, how do you feel about that? How do you feel about maybe giving her some underwear? And I was like, do I have to put underwear on there? And they were like, no. And I'm like, okay, then no. Because I really wanted her to be like completely vulnerable. And, you know, like Ruth goes through it. Ruth goes absolutely through it. So she spends a lot of time in a forest covered with mud. Spoiler. So that's yeah. So nobody ever asked me to change anything I didn't want to change. You know, they just pointed out things that weren't working. And for me, like, whenever something isn't working, I already kind of feel it on a gut level. So then when they are like this, I'm like, you're right, I just don't know what to do. So it's, for me, I've been fortunate. I've always had very kind of peaceable experiences with editing with people. So, yeah. But, and I have had wonderful experiences with Simon Schuster. They've treated me really, really well. I've had some really terrible jobs in my life, you guys. Really, 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 really terrible jobs and really, really, really terrible bosses. And I had so many terrible jobs in a row. I really was like, you know, man, the one common denominator in all these bad experiences is me. You know, so I have to be the problem. Like, I'm the link. So I must just not know how to work with humans, you know. And then I found Simon Schuster really great, and it's been wonderful. And so you just gotta find what you're good at. Wow, is it super late?